Hi everyone, I'm Sandra Ingerman and welcome to the Shamans Cave.
I'm Renee Baribeau, and we're really happy to be able to be with you here at this time. It's funny because I work from home, and it's still a shift for me. I had no idea that even though I work from home and I'm alone most of the time, that just the basic acts of going to the store, going for a hike on the trail, all of those things, I'm trying to be, socially respectful as well. And there's a sadness that's kind of permeating the air here, and I thought that it would be, and actually we both thought that it'd be a good time to talk about grief and how it's connected to all of this and such.
Yeah, I think it's really important, and I've been talking about this a lot, so sorry for those of you who have already heard me talking about this. The very first thing I learned in shamanism was that viruses come from negative thought forms. And we're putting out so many negative thought forms from the political unrest that we've experienced with immigrants and immigrant families being pulled apart. It's broken our heart to see some of what's happened to the children. And then there's the fires in the Amazon rainforest, which were the lungs considered by the indigenous people there, the lungs of the earth. And then there were fires in Australia where, over 1 billion nature beings died. And so through all of this, we've been moving through these places of dissolution, and dissolution is actually good. Dissolution is what causes the reorganization of a new form to come about. But in the midst of the dissolution, we all experience a tremendous amount of grief. And there's grief on all different levels. There's the grief, I think, of people feeling that life will never be the same again. And I think in a lot of ways that is going to be true. And I was noticing yesterday how, there's so many spiritual practitioners, and part of the beauty of shamanism is sitting in a circle and holding hands together and sharing energy and what we all get from touch. I mean, one of the ways to calm our nervous system down is to be touched. And right now, everything is around social distancing. And so grief is hitting us on many levels. It's the grief of losing loved ones. It's the grief of losing businesses. It's the grief of losing a whole entire way of life. It's a grief of being touched. And I think I've only just talked a little bit about what might be impacting people right now.
Yes, and being that I'm the more practical kind of one here in this duo, I've noticed, and we both noticed, we both showed up wearing black to talk about grief. And I remember one time a long time ago that when I was down in Chile, and the Mapuche shamans said when people suffered a loss, they wore black for a year. They actually symbolized that they were, in grieving, and we don't really even, we just are inconvenienced and don't even realize that. One of the things tomorrow, my Windwork basic class starts, and every spring when I teach the Windwork basics, we start about what seeds do you want to plant for this year? And so this year, it seems like, we're going to have to, the work is going to have to start with, how do we grieve the plans we had for this year? Because all of those other ideas we had, like the trips to Germany, that was, the Passion Play was canceled, and because they can't practice, all of those ideas that I had for this year are now coming to a quick stop. It's I don't even know if I'll be able to go up to Whitby in a few weeks, where I want to go and, continue working on my book. And certainly for me, this this malaise that's going around has not put me into a creative space. And the other thing I'm grieving, this is really crazy, Sandra, because I work from home. And so all of these other people get to be forced to be home, right? And get these breaks. And I don't get a break. Not only don't I get a break, I'm inconvenienced for the times that I do go out. And it's like, you know, really get over yourself. But so it's not, doesn't even matter if you work from home or you don't work from home. So those people who work, they're in fear about, you know, how they're going to eat next week. And I'm like, well, how am I going to get, you know, into the grocery store? So we're all having this big loss at many, many levels.
Yeah, I think for me, this sounds terrible, and I apologize to all of our listeners out there, but I've been so jealous of all of you. I'm working 13 hours a day. I was on the computer the other night trying to finish my emails, and my fingers froze. They would not do one more key. So yeah, we're all having a different experience. But I think it does bring up a big issue, because I've talked about this before, that something happened to me in my own life, and it affected my life for the last 5 years, and it happened like that. I mean, it happened like that. One day I had my full life, and in a minute, my life was changed forever. And I think that's some of what we're dealing with now. And I've learned a lot. I learned a lot through that process, because the first few years for me was a huge dark night of the soul, one that I had never experienced in any of my initiations. And all initiations have a part of a dark night of the soul. And I really didn't believe I was going to get through it. I was positive I wasn't. And then something started to happen for me. One is my spiritual practices started to have a little bit more power to help me heal a bit of what was going on emotionally for me that was causing such a physical issue. And I had to get to a place of understanding that surrender and acceptance sometimes have to go together. It's like, where's that balance of you've lost something in life? Where's the balance of you fight, you surrender, you accept? And that's been a very interesting journey for me, because I'm constantly dancing these paradoxes. And so for those of you who are suffering a big loss, there is a period of not believing in anything, and not believing in spiritual work anymore, not believing in a creator, not believing in helping spirits. There is a period of that. And that's just normal, because in nature, there's always dissolution before there's new birth. There's always dissolution before new birth.
And you know, the other day somebody wrote on the Wind Clan wall that they were angry at spirit. And, you know, I noticed everyone was trying to fix it and tell them, well, you could do this, or you, and you know what, one time, I mean, I have been so pissed off, you know, like, you know, when I was more like into my martyr phase, I was like, one time I remember beating my fists on the steering column saying, why have you forsaken me? Like, and the truth is that we need a spirit with bigger shoulders than we have, because we're shouldering a lot. We're shouldering the people who are sick, the people in our families we can't get to. You know, a lot of people I know this week have lost their jobs. That's been a big one, and I'm grateful. You know, we're grateful that we are at this home economy as well, that we have this supplemental. You know, for some of us, it's a supplemental to what we do. And yet there's also this grief of that paradigm is ending. That paradigm is, I'm going to even go as far as to say that paradigm has ended. Last night on my Windwalk, I wrote to these two young women that I have the great fortune of working with in the treatment industry, which, by the way, there's a lot of stress to keep people in treatment right now when, you know, when no one wants to call and go to a treatment center. So there's the added stress of the day job. But I wrote to them and I said, wow, you're both bringing in children into the C generation that they're already calling it. Like, it's the before we knew that there was a global pandemic, and the after. And for me, you know, the new book I'm working on is all about, that I started working on before, is all about after. And so I thought that was really curious. And one of them has a daughter born last year. And I'm thinking, wow, I wonder how different their perspectives are going to be on this world and being birthed into, you know, a world that will never be what it was several months ago. And I think collectively, we all need to find the blessings in there and grieve it. And that's why we thought it was really important to come on with a new subject. And also, and this, I'm gonna be a shameless plug, Sandra, for both of us.
Mm.
This is the time that you want to be with your spiritual community. And both Sandra and I have a class starting tomorrow night, and Sandra has a free webinar tonight that we both would not be doing this when everyone else is on vacation or having this free space if our spirits weren't telling us how absolutely important it was to round up our clans and teach.
Yeah, it's a real time, and since the show is on grief, this is a real way. In the class that I'm going to be teaching for 7 weeks, we're working on 3 levels where we'll be working on what we need to do for our personal healing to build up what I'm calling spiritual immunity, because I see this as a spiritual illness that we're dealing with. And then there's going to be the part of every class where we do a ceremony where we are holding hands and sharing light with each other to strengthen our global community as a circle. And then the third part will be teaching people how to bring some of this work out to their communities in really simple ways to inspire. So, you know, there's a lot of beautiful tools out there, and Renee and I are offering some tools that have really helped people. In a similar course that I taught, and I'm still on that Facebook page, some of the people are writing, thank God I took this course because I'm staying centered through the coronavirus. And I think the bottom line message is, no matter how much you feel betrayed by this, or no matter how much fear or grief that you're going through, it is really important to keep your spiritual tools right now. It is really important because, as I keep sharing over and over again, it's our spirit that's going to carry us through. And if our spirit is not strong enough, we're going to have problems getting through.
Absolutely. And the work that I'm teaching, it's called Windwork Basics, but anyone who's ever taken a Windwork class knows they're simple, but there's nothing basic about it. But we're going to start at the beginning. And one of the things that I've been uncovering recently is that we need new anchor points. The old anchor points, if we shifted it into a different paradigm, the old anchor points aren't working any longer. And so this whole class is going to be about resetting your anchor points so that, like Sandra said, that you're a spiritual warrior in this time, and your community looks up to you as somebody who brings, you know, peace when there's so much suffering and grief around, and that you can hold that emotional body of yours as a beacon of light, even on those days when you seem to be falling apart on the inside. Because one thing Sandra said was like, you know, she didn't know if she was ever going to get through it, but her spirit did. You know, we know that's like, it's like the darkest night of the soul. I remember being on a journey in Mexico where the only thing that kept me tethered to this planet was the the shaman's rattle. I knew that I knew my way back through the shaman's rattle. And so today we're actually going to do a purification ceremony to help us move some of this grief. But before we do that, Sandra, do you have one more point? There's just so much to share about grief, and we can all sit here and cry.
Yeah. My only thing about grief is the more I've grieved in my life, the bigger vessel I've been for compassion and for love. And so what I call heartbreak, and I share this a lot, my definition of heartbreak is actually heart expanding. When our heart is broken and we're in a state of grief, our heart expands and never closes back down again. And that's why the shaman is called the wounded healer, because the shaman is always experiencing heartbreak that keeps his or her heart open so that he can be a vessel, or she can be a vessel of love and light for their clients, their community, and the planet. So yes, grief hurts, and it's really important. I used to write blogs for the Huffington Post, and then when I wrote a blog on omens, they threw me off. But I wrote for them for over a year. And on my website, sandraingerman.com, if you go to Huffington Post, there's a really short article on ways to deal with grief. It's really short because the Huffington Post, everything I think was 800 words. And I have some different ways to work with grief that you might wanna, that might be helpful for you right now.
And we do recommend that you check out her class or my class, or both classes.
Yeah.
Some people, you have time. We're working, you're at home resting. So last night when I was on my nightly wind walk, and those have been the things that have really saved me, where I go outside and I ask a question, or I ask for just some peace and serenity from being on the computer 12, 14 hours a day. And leading a team, and last night I got this thing, like I was longing for the Aniki, I was longing for the lodge, and I thought, like, well, certainly not very practical to go into a lodge right at this moment, although I think the heat would take care of that. And I was shown that we could have our own little ceremony, and that what we're going to do is we're going to invite you with my drum into the shaman's cave. And trust me, there's plenty of place for you all to spread out. You can have your 6 feet of safety net. And what we're going to do is with the drum, I'm going to bring in a rock that's been out in the fire from the outside and put it in the center of us. And the first one will be for our mind. The second one will be for our emotional bodies in this grief. The third one will be for really releasing this physical grief. And the fourth one will be for our spirit. So it'll be a little bit longer, but you might want to go back and visit it because we don't have a lot of time for these. But I think this ceremony is really important. And while I'm starting the drumming at the beginning, you might want to do some fire breathing, where you bring your breath way into your belly and, keep expanding it so you can really feel the heat of this lodge as you build up the fire within you. Because if you've ever been into an Aniki lodge, the temperatures can get well over 120, 130. And what Spirit showed me was that we really needed that deep heat from the inside of our souls to move this energy from this virus out from us at all levels. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
In front of you, you see a cave. If you can, get down on your hands and knees and enter into the cave clockwise, going around the fire pit that's in the middle. There's plenty of room spread out. sit there, feel the earth beneath you, and make room for the others as they come in. And now the fire keeper is going to bring in the first stone, the first ancestor. And this red hot rock is put into the center, into the pit. And the water pourer is going to pour the water over there. And as they pour the water, give up anything that you're thinking. Bad memories, beliefs, ideas. Put them into the steam and let them rise out the smoke hole at the top of the cave. Let it go. And now the fire keeper's bringing in another hot rock. A grandfather, an elder. It's glowing red. This one's for your emotional body, your emotions, your needs and desires. And as the water's poured upon this stone, give any emotional baggage that you have to the steam and let it rise. Let it go. The fire tender brings in that third grandfather, that third ancestral stone. It's bigger than the other ones. This is all of the physical discomfort, the endings, things that we're losing physically. As the water's poured upon this stone, let go of any material possessions that no longer serve you. Give them to the fire, give them to the steam, and let it go. And now the fire tender is going to bring in that fourth grandfather, that fourth stone, that wisdom stone from spirit. And ask, pray. Pray that spirit gives you a vision of what needs to be released. What is this time period in history? What are you giving up? How will you support community? What stands between you and the community? And as the water pourer pours the water on this stone, let your prayers be taken to source. Let your prayers be going up the smoke hole. Come back out from this on your hands and knees, finishing the circle, crawling clockwise. Come back out from the cave. Come back out to your room. Come out to this experience.
That was wonderful, Renee. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can really feel kind of the layers moving off. So I think it brought great healing to everybody. And even though our exercises are short, it had elements in it that I was able to speed up pretty quickly. I actually didn't need a longer time. So you did it really beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for allowing us to be here and holding space with you during these, these times, and we don't know what these times mean until sometimes we'll be down the road. But in the meantime, make sure you check out the links below and maybe join Sandra tonight and think about the Windwork Basics that is going to start this week too. And come over to the Shamans Cave. People must need us because they're joining by hundreds of people a week. And shamanstv.com has all of our episodes, so you can watch and get re-inspired.
Yeah, and although some of our episodes are similar in topic, we always change, we always put in a twist because our show, as you know, is short. And so every topic cannot be covered in a half an hour. So you'll find that as you listen to the different episodes that you get different pieces that you can start putting together like a beautiful puzzle. And so they're all, I think what I really wanted in doing a shorter show is that we're so overwhelmed right now with information. And so we wanted to give people kind of that spiritual hit to strengthen our spirits so that we feel the strength to be carried through. So we're really grateful for everybody who tunes in and gets those little bites of knowledge and then goes back and learns some more. So blessings to everyone and be safe.
Blessings to you, Sandra.